Cool. Well, I'm trying to get the link.
Well, hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Happy to see everybody joining and super excited about today's chat. As we're getting rolling, if you guys don't mind dropping in chat whether the audio is good and where you are in the world, let us know where you're watching from. Chantelle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well. Super excited to have you here. So we'll give everybody just a second to continue lurking in, or not lurking in, wow, to continue dropping in. Got a bunch of people dropping in chat. Everybody says good. We have somebody from Virginia and let's see, Colombia, India. Let's see, who else? Recognizing plenty of familiar faces. Let's see, Chantelle's voice is a little bit low. Let me see if I can fix that. Yeah.
Do something. I can talk. I can project.
There we go. Perfect. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Nashville, Jacksonville, Germany, Brazil. We have a worldwide audience here.
Guys.
Finland. Wow. Pretty amazing.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to give Chantelle an opportunity to introduce herself here in just a minute. But basically, our topic today is surrounding growing yourself from kind of just a freelancer into a full-blown agency, which I think for a lot of people, including myself, that's always kind of been the goal. And so still getting reports of kind of low audio, that is, but let's see.
Sound low is what they're saying.
Yep. Let's see. So if oh, you know what? I think it's my fault. Sorry, 1 second.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, go ahead and say hello to the world again.
Hello, world.
All right, we should be good. Let's see. It usually takes just a couple seconds for it to pop through in chat. Appreciate all you guys helping us out right here at the start. See, I see why podcast producers have a dedicated person for this sort of thing, because then that person is responsible. Okay, we're getting affirmatives here in chat, so I'm glad I didn't have you introduce yourself just yet. So we're good to go now. So,
Perfect. Oh, somebody said didn't change. No audio.
I think we're good. I think that one
Are we
was
okay?
slightly before.
Okay.
Sounds good. Better now. Much better. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, we're set.
Okay, so I need to probably stop monitoring. This is
Yeah,
not my
yeah.
show. It's your show. So I don't have to work. I'm just going to hang out.
It's always distracting to read the chat too. So we'll come back to the chat in a little bit, but
Cool.
yeah, so what I was saying is we're going to talk about kind of growing yourself from a freelancer to an agency and all the different nuances of that. You know, this is a super deep topic, so we could talk about it for probably days and weeks and still not cover everything. But it came from a poll that I posted on the Facebook group and on YouTube. I asked, what non-Oxygen Builder content would people like to see? And this was the number one response both in Facebook and on YouTube. So when that popped up, my thought was, well, who do I know that's, a proper agency and could speak eloquently on this? And you came to mind. So I'm super happy to have you. And if you can, tell us who you are, about your business, your backstory, and we'll kind of get rolling.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Jonathan. I love sharing this journey because I feel like it's just full of lots of learning, and it's so interesting, the path from freelancer to agency, if you will, and then what happens even when you get there. And then there are all these different types of agencies, obviously, and we are a very specific type. But so like many freelancers, my regular 9-to-5 job was doing exactly what I was doing. So I worked in destination marketing organizations, convention and visitors bureaus. My husband and I had traveled all over the US with his job. And so hospitality, marketing, advertising, branding, those were all things that I could do anywhere and everywhere without having to like recertify myself. And then it was also a really good fit for me personally, for my skill set, and just what I really like to do. So I got into that. We moved all around. We came here to the Emerald Coast, and I was the marketing director for the Tourism Development Council, and noticed that whenever we needed to hire an agency, we always had to go to a larger city. So there was that hole in the market there. And, it was just always the top of my brain. I had never worked for an agency before. I've always been on the client side, which in the beginning seemed like a huge risk. Also, I talk with my hands a lot, so I probably should put them down.
No, you're good.
But seemed like a huge risk. But I had a lot of friends who worked in agencies, and I consulted with them and, really asked them questions from mentoring, just basically seeking mentors if I decided to make this leap. I knew the hole in the market was there. I left my job very amicably and moved into this role immediately. Saying that I went from freelancer to agency is almost a little it kind of happened that way. I think the perception was that I was a freelancer, but in the very beginning, my intention was that I was going to grow a team eventually. And so just speaking with people that I knew who were already agency executives or owners, that process, it was really a guided process. And so I didn't do that alone, which was great. But that first 8 months to a year, I was a freelancer consultant. And I mean, as you know, the word consultant sometimes comes across as unemployed.
Yeah, right.
Like, like you're a consultant because you don't have a job.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but have you ever seen the movie Father of the Bride?
I'm a
Where,
terrible movie person, so if you ask me if I've seen a movie, there's like a this much chance that I've seen it, to be honest.
well, Steve Martin is the dad in that, and his daughter's getting married to some guy, and she's like, he's a consultant. And he's like, oh, so he's unemployed. I mean, it's just like this thing. And I wanted to break through and get through to that, even though I was working alone. I had this brand, this Francis Roy brand, but it was just me. And every time I said the word we, it felt like I was lying. But I knew I needed to get to that point, and I was trying to get to my first team member as quickly as possible. So it was a bit of a journey that took about 8 months to a year. I don't have the technical skill set that a lot of the people on my team have. So I would say probably the one thing that I bring to the table is the relationship development and the account management and kind of the sales component. So I could get clients, but as I was getting them, it was really trying to build these project teams out of other freelancers that were helping me kind of create this agency and make it work. So that's probably way too much more than what you were asking, but it's, I don't know. It's just it's been just a really interesting path. And then we turned 5 years old, July the 1st. So
happy almost birthday.
Thank you. It was actually April the 1st, because that's when I first filed our business paperwork. But then July the 1st is when we had our first like legit client. And it's just been gangbusters ever since.
That's so awesome. I did the exact same thing. My paperwork was like February, but my start date's like May 1st. So actually, I think we've talked about this before, but and for those of you guys that don't know, Chantelle and I know each other personally. We live in the same area, and so we've chatted a lot. We're on boards together, a bunch of stuff like that. But this year will be my 4th year, so I'm just barely shorter, younger than you guys.
We have to celebrate that.
Yeah, we totally do. Combined birthday.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned a bunch of things in there that I think are all really important. Like, for instance, talking as a we instead of an I, even though for the most part, like as a freelancer, you are the business. Like, even though there's this entity, which we've actually talked about that I struggle with, is like there's this business entity, whatever you call yourself, and then there's you. But in essence, they are the same thing. And like, how do you go about, especially in the early days, like separating that intentionally with clients? So is one of those steps referring to it as we, even though there is no we, and then basically making sure that people understand that like you are a business, you're not just a dude or a lady that does graphic design or does website design. Because I think there's an important distinction, because you could have a solo attorney and it's kind of the same thing. So curious your thoughts on that.
Well, this is a little bit of a stretch. So, and it is something that I struggled with and still continue to struggle with, I think. But the we really, and I talk about this a lot on my podcast, but it really came from like a place of imposter syndrome. Like I never wanted to, I honestly, some of my least favorite people in the world are like I people.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it was never just me. I always either had someone helping me with finance. I was hiring freelance graphic designers online. I was tapping into people that I had already known. I was never doing the work by myself, ever. Even like small little pieces maybe that weren't just main components of Francis Roy. I was never doing it alone. And it always just felt like I was taking credit for work that I wasn't doing. So breaking through that and becoming a we initially, even though, because I had somebody ask me flat out, like, well, who is we for you guys? Like a potential client. And it caught me off guard because I was like, well, who is? I don't know idea. Like me, this pin, but there really was, when you thought about it, I had a personal, a loan officer at the bank that was helping me. I had people who were helping me start my business paperwork. I was, working with people that I already knew that were copy. I mean, I didn't design the logo at Francis Roy. I hired someone to do that. So from the very beginning, it was never me alone, and it never has been.
That's such a good point because I think it's almost scary for people to say we because it feels fake, like you're almost lying to people. But
Yes.
that's a really good point, and I've never really considered that because even from the very beginning, just like you, I didn't do my own logo. Like I didn't. There are definitely plenty of things that I didn't do. Didn't set up the business paperwork, stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
so even though you feel like you are the business and you're responsible for everything, like that kind of leads into another question that I had was like, you know, I think for a lot of people the question of freelancer to agency is based on a number of people or like
Mhm.
like a dollar figure in the business. So I was curious your thoughts on what does that transition point look like? Is it a dollar figure or a number of people, or what sort of separates a freelancer from a proper agency in your mind?
Um, it's very simply just the mindset that I'm not a freelancer. And I named our business Francis Roy Agency from day one, even though it was just me. And even though I was operating and some of my contracts were like freelancer consultant type contracts, I wanted to get to that. And I really don't want to use the word credibility. And I use that very loosely because it's not like freelancers are not credible working human beings, because they absolutely are. I built my business on very talented freelancers, and every single team member at Francis Roy was a freelancer then became an employee.
Mm,
So that model, works. But on the client end, there is this perception, the difference, the prestige difference between working with someone who is a singular contracted basis and then working with an agency full of people where you're really only probably your touch point is one person, but you feel confident that there is a team of talent behind that one person. And that's what the agency provides, and so it's not necessarily you're looking for a certain dollar amount. It's like, if you want to make the transition from freelancer to agency, why not do that now?
right.
Because you're not doing it alone, essentially.
Definitely. No, really, at no point are you doing it alone. And then, especially if for like me, I've tapped into contractors for a long time for things like design and even for like website help from time to time, especially for like more seasoned developers or people like that.
Hmm.
And initially, it felt wrong to consider these people that were contractors, but that I was working with on a regular basis as team members
Hmm.
and then helping sort of graduate that. And it also felt super uncomfortable when I was talking to clients to say we and our team, even
Hmm.
though they absolutely were, because whatever that client and I were talking about, we were going to end up, working behind the scenes with these other contractors and freelancers. So in essence, they are your team. So
Of course.
then you build a more complete offering, which in my sort of experience feels like you become more competitive to the client. You become more serious. There's probably a justification for you being able to charge more. They take
Oh,
you
for
more
sure.
seriously, and you stand out as compared to someone who is just a single individual.
You do. I mean, that's so well said, Jonathan. I think that, you know, we have this idea in our field about what agencies are supposed to look like and what they're supposed to be. So you have this perception that it's this, swanky high rise,
Right.
and there are
Free
three
kombucha.
floors. Yeah, free kombucha. Everybody's like hanging out in hammocks, and you know, or even the older school concept, the Mad Men concept of agencies where, there are all these different stereotypes, but it still has this like level of prestige. And it is really not that anymore. The internet has completely changed that. There are fully functioning agencies that are smaller teams, they're boutique teams, they're teams like ours, they're in small communities. When we first started the agency 5 years ago, there was one other full service agency in town, and the word agency really kind of clearly defined the type of work that you were going to do, and we wanted to disrupt that a little bit as well. And that has been very interesting. I mean, if we wanted to hire an agency, we had to go to New Orleans or Atlanta or Orlando or something, because the concept was these larger cities were the only ones that had these agencies. And it's just like, well, why? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. There are talented people that are here in our community. Um, their only option for work should not have to be a freelancer if they want to work and collaborate within an agency team. And so, really, a lot of the drive behind Francis Roy was creating we have a Facebook, creating a face-to-face team of people that was just a really great place to work. I will say this, like, this is so stupid. And people are like, what? No, it is. It's really not ever been about the money for me. It's about the team. Like, I love that collaboration. That, like,
Yeah.
around our table, we still old school whiteboard things. Even though I think we're going to get a vibe board, but whatever. It's fine. They've talked me into it, but we still, like, strategize and work together. And, COVID really kind of hurt our team a little bit, because the foundation of our team is built on that face-to-face collaboration.
Yeah.
But I really just wanted something that I never had in my career. Never.
So that's such a good point about the collaboration, because I think that's a real struggle for people to get over. Like, it totally is possible to collaborate over the internet, but there's like,
Yeah.
there's the asynchronous
Mhm.
versus, same time, maybe on a Zoom call, or you're both in the chat room at the same time. But what's your experience? Because I know you have a team member overseas,
Mhm.
with that collaboration with somebody that's not physically in your office versus in the office, and what are the benefits and drawbacks to both?
Right. So we have a marketing manager that's in Japan, and she lived here originally and then moved to Japan. So it was a really cool opportunity for our agency to be 24 hours and international. So we're just always, I think, thinking a little bit bigger and not really worrying about the confinement of that. Is that right, or is that okay? Um, it's right because we say it's right, and it's okay because we say it's okay. And so we really embrace that. Is it more difficult to collaborate with her than others? Yes, because we do have the time constraint. She's 15 hours ahead of us, but in a lot of ways it opens up opportunity that we never had and never would have had without her being there. So the trade-offs, I think, are worth it. But we still have a regular team call every week, and it's Thursdays at 4 o'clock, and it's at 6 a.m. in the morning for her, and she prioritizes and makes it there, and our entire team comes together. And we, are doing a big retreat in December. Our team is going to New Orleans and doing a retreat, and she's flying to come in for that. So we make an effort because the team is prioritized.
I think that's really important, is to stay in touch in that even virtual sense of, like, physically,
Yes.
through face-to-face communication like this. And another thing that I was always really interested in, or kind of afraid of, I guess I should say, would be like, when you're talking to people and they ask who's on your team, having that fear to say that somebody is overseas, when, as
Yes.
I've come to realize in the past, 6 months or a year, first of all, nobody cares anymore, but also they didn't really care before. And if this person is doing excellent work, I don't think it matters where they are physically. And that,
Right. Hmm. You're so right, Jonathan. So I think when people ask that question, first of all, when people ask questions that are essentially none of their business, I like to always answer it with, like, supreme confidence. Like, oh, you have a person that lives in Japan. So, like, right away, it's like the premise is, did you hire someone who doesn't speak English? And which is a little
right.
controversial. And I'm like, yes, and you're welcome. Or she does speak English. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, there is
totally.
this idea that the best idea should win all the time. The best idea should win. And how can you expect the best idea to win if you're only going to work with people like you?
Yeah, or in your physical area.
Or in your physical area.
Yeah.
And Kelsey, who is our employee and our team member in Japan, she has opened up this whole new world of ideas and thought diversity and things that we never would have had before. And so we just kind of spin it in a very confident way that our team is growing. We're international, we're multifaceted, we have diverse thought, and we bring all of that strength to our client work, and it shows. And so we don't feel negatively about it, and we don't answer in a way that kind of like puts up this wall of, the confidence is not there. The confidence is definitely there because we
Yep.
want the most talented people. And frankly, the most talented people don't always live in your neighborhood.
That's so true. So true. And I think for basically everyone, COVID has shown that you can get those people,
Oh
and
my gosh,
the
yes.
physical boundary doesn't matter anymore like it used to. It used to be like, how can I get this person from Utah or, Japan or wherever? Like that doesn't matter anymore, whereas it used to. And that's
Yeah.
a super exciting opportunity, I think, for everyone that is a freelancer. It's like that person that you've maybe collaborated with, like work with them more closely, and you
Hmm.
both will get more out of it. I love that collaboration. And somebody said to me recently, like, even though that person is in a different time zone, it doesn't necessarily mean, like you've already said, that it has to be asynchronous. It doesn't have to be that lag time in communication. You can use that window of
Right.
time to communicate with them. And the other thing is, you've said this to me before, but I have a member of my team that's basically 6 hours ahead. So there'll be times where I'll send a task at 4 p.m. and then I wake up the next day and it's done because that person's day has already been completed, and that's just like the most mind-bendingly beautiful thing ever.
Isn't that amazing?
It's so
I love
so
that.
incredible.
I love waking up in the morning, I have like 5 emails from Kelsey, and she's like, this was done. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it feels like the most efficient use of time. And, that's the kind of a big jump between freelancer and an agency is the efficiency. And well, and you and I talked about this, paying your hourly rate as an agency is different than your hourly rate as a freelancer.
Right.
And just ensuring that that is the right rate, whatever the heck that is. I mean, it's so difficult. That could be a whole other thing.
Yep.
Are you charging the right amount of money? Are you taking into consideration what your market will hold? Are you doing work outside of your market, which we do work in other states, and what does your comp set look like, and are you analyzing that in every location that you work? And we spend a lot of time on that. But efficiencies are everything, because if you go from a time where you're just managing your time to now you're thinking about, you have a team, like we have a team of 8 to 10 people, depending on what we've got going on, that hourly rate, then you're looking at the mix of like expertise, because
Mm.
not everyone pulls the same hourly rate, right? Within an agency team. So like my consultant rate is higher than in like our design rate, or you know what I mean? It just kind of depends on who's working on it. And so yes, you are paying more for an agency, but you are getting more. It is very rare that if you work with a freelancer that you don't also have to work with another type of freelancer.
Right.
Whereas with an agency, you kind of get everything and everyone that you need if it's full service all at the same time. So if you're leading that charge and you're managing the transition between, working alone or working with a group of freelancers to working with an agency, you have to make sure that your efficiencies are tight, but they're not unnecessary. There's not like you have so many, like you have like Slack and Basecamp, and it's not like, I'm here to tell you, bro, no one's going to do all that.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, find what works for you and then hone it in. It doesn't have to be every single app that's out there, but, just really polishing that and making it right. And I literally work on efficiencies every single day.
It's honestly like fun. It's exciting to me to build those efficient processes. You've touched on two different things, which I thought was really, whatever the word is, poignant in that. So one of them that I wanted to ask you about was your opinion on, as an agency, being super focused and niching down, as people typically call it. So I know you have the background in travel and tourism. So that was one thing. And then also making that leap from, basically working a 9 to 5, you leap
Mhm.
out, you become your own, boss, your business owner, you're a freelancer. I think then you have, in my opinion, arguably a more difficult leap to then bring on that next person, whether it's a contractor or not, because there's a cost associated with it. You have to, talk about processes and efficiencies and expectations. You
Right.
have to build that they're so there's two separate questions in this, but the idea of building that team provides you more opportunities. You already mentioned that, both from
Mhm.
like the actual opportunity, revenue, services, thought leadership, all that kind of stuff. So I forget where I was going with that, but I don't know.
There's a lot. There's a lot in there. And I think you're asking good questions. Like, well, first of all, I will say this. I own Francis Roy, but in reality, it owns me.
Right?
Right? Like I
So
own nothing. I'm the janitor here.
that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. That was like probably my
Yeah.
number one question is like, I think there's a conversation to be had about, do you even want to get to that point? Or is it that sort of external pressure of like, I need to build, build, build? Like,
Yeah.
so how do you have that conversation with yourself, which I still struggle with? Like, do I actually want to build the team? Do I want all that extra complication? Am I happy with the way things are now? And
Hmm.
I don't know if you went through that, but I think about that a lot.
Yeah. So the reward is big, but it is a lot of responsibility. There has been nothing in my life that I have felt more stressed about than managing other people and feeling responsible for them, because leadership requires you to not just be a task manager. You are responsible for the growth and development of these people that you have committed to providing a place to grow and learn and flourish. And that is the response. I feel like that's a huge human responsibility.
Yeah.
And a lot of our core value system is built on offering someone a very mm, holistic and um, enjoyable, experience when they work here at Francis Roy. And in the very beginning, I didn't want anyone to ever quit. I was like, if I'm doing my job, no one will ever quit, ever. And I have a really great mentor who said that you're not building a place where people never quit. That's crazy. But you're building an agency where people feel proud to be from. They can say that I came from this place, and I can say that in a prideful way. So that changed my mindset a little bit there. But there is this responsibility. You do shift from working for yourself. When you're a freelancer, you work for yourself. When you're an agency, you work for your team.
Right.
And that is a shift, and it is a responsibility. Now, there are different types of managers and there are different types of leaders, and that's obviously a whole other discussion. But some of my favorite leaders are the ones who are not, they're going to do anything that they ask anybody else to do. And if you're that type of leader, you're probably tired, but you also get this, you have this philosophy that you are leading by example, and you're probably going to eat last. You are, going to be looking out for the development of the team, and the work that is produced from a team that runs like that is so incredibly beautiful and rewarding. It is much more rewarding than anything I ever accomplished on my own. And so for me, it makes it worth it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So it's almost like that risk reward. Just like when you leave
Yes.
your job and you become a freelancer, like suddenly your risk skyrockets, but so does your reward. Like that
Oh,
it's like directly proportional to how much effort you put in. And
yes.
it kind of seems like that's sort of copy and paste to building your team initially. Like,
Mhm.
yes, maybe like we've had this conversation before where I look at my hourly rate and then I look at what the contractor gets and then I'm like, but I could just do it myself and then get this whole thing. But
Yeah.
but it's so rewarding, I think, to let people flourish in that. And I'm curious also, I still want to come back to the idea of niching down at some point, so don't let me
Oh,
forget about
let's do.
that.
Okay.
But how do you build like processes for these people while not micromanaging? Because I think people in these industries that are going to excel do not want to be micromanaged,
Right.
and but also giving this person the freedom to excel, but then not stifling their creativity and their growth potential. You know?
Right. Well, we give them a lot of flexibility over their time. And, I care more about the end result and being on project deadline. I don't honestly care how and when that happens.
Right. Yeah.
And so the creatives that we work with, they love that. They love that freedom. They love being able to go and do family things if they need to do family things, or if it's a bright and sunny day, we always joke we take a Sunday instead of a snow day. Like
Right.
we're going to take a Sunday because you just need that time to feel inspired and reinvigorated
Yep.
and then come back to the work, and the work is better. So it really is my job to make sure that we have enough time, that we're still managing our time, and that we're taking on projects that are feasible, that we know that we can produce really good work for in a way that's not going to stress out our team. Is that a perfect process? No. So the efficiencies of my team, I'm just working on that consistently, because it's like, okay, well, we tried that and that didn't work. Or, I tell the guys all the time, if it feels like there's a better way, there is a better way. So let's just come together. Let's completely deconstruct it and figure out how we can build it again in a better way. We can see who is like the clog in the funnel. And sometimes that person is me. So, just being very honest as well. I mean, you cannot lead with ego when you have, that's very difficult, because and it's just an honest conversation.
Especially when it's your baby, it's your business.
When it's your baby, when you are rowing the boat by yourself, you're just rowing the boat. You're probably very talented. I have yet to meet anyone who was not supremely talented that wasn't thinking about like, oh, I can take this to the next level. You're very talented. And then you get into this like little bit of a bigger boat, and you have some people, and you're all rowing together, and everything is good. An agency is like a battleship. It is not like we're all rowing together. It is, you are the, captain or whatever, and you are ensuring that everybody who is rowing, even though they're rowing without you sometimes, are taken care of. They're well fed, they're well rested, they have work that they feel very rewarded by. And that is a different feeling. And thus it's a different responsibility. But you are conquering more, you are doing more, the result is much more rewarding for me if you're the kind of person that wants to lead that kind of team. So it's not for everyone.
Right. Because some people truly love the work that they do. Like I've encountered those people that they absolutely love graphic design or photography, but they have zero desire to go out and run their own business. They're content to be in that space and be guided by the captain of the ship. And, I think as freelancers and agency owners, we're like sort of locked into this mindset of like, but you should leave and go, do your own thing and level up. But not everybody has that same desire, which is good for us.
Yes. Well, and that you see the reverse too. People who are leaving perfectly great jobs in agencies and going to be a freelancer. And then when you're a freelancer, you realize, can I cuss here? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh my, and you're like, oh shit. I now have to do my own business development. I have to write my own proposals. I am closing deals. And sometimes that personality is not a good fit for that.
Yeah.
You may be uber creative, but then maybe a little introverted, or, you want to pair with someone who is a strong hunter and closer. And the work requires that, or, what's the purpose of being incredibly talented if you don't have anything to work on?
So that you're segueing perfectly into another question I had, which was surrounding, like, if you're building that team, and let's say you are one person, maybe you have a few kind of contractors, but they're not really like closely involved in your business. What are you analyzing to figure out who that person should be that's kind of your right-hand woman and or man?
So it's interesting. And we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm a fan of the soft skills person, first and foremost, right? Like talented people. I've worked with a lot of talented people in my career. Like, I've been in this field now for over 20 years, and there are very talented photographers and videographers and designers and web developers and all of that. There is no replacement for the person who will be your right-hand person, who is loyal, who is dedicated, who can help you carry a vision in case something happens. If you have the luxury to be able to have that person, right?
Right.
If you are in the very beginning and you're just looking at building a service offering and a skill set, if that person can also bring forth talents and skills that you do not have, that's who you're looking for. And so I do a constant skills inventory on myself because frankly, it changes every year that I get older. Like don't even ask me to do anything on TikTok talk because it's not happening. Like it's never gonna happen. But there are people on my team who can do that.
Yeah.
And so that's not on my skills inventory list, right? Like I don't bring that to the table. So I am consistently looking for people on my team who are not me. Replicas of me are just going to produce the same work that I can produce on my own. So we need people who think differently, who are different, who have different backgrounds, different educations, different ethnicities, different genders. Like we need all of that. They're bringing all of this to the table that I, as one person, cannot bring
Yeah.
to the table. So I'm constantly looking for those people who think differently. But sometimes they're like the grenade people, you know?
Right.
They're so different. They're about to change your whole life and everybody's life, in a way that they just think a lot differently, but explosive idea development from that and innovation from that. So you just, it's a balance, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning experience all the time. So now, one thing I've been asked a number of times is, do I specialize in a specific niche? And it sort of
Mhm.
happened inadvertently over the last couple of years that I've been getting more and more of the same type of site to
Mm.
build, and it's been both good, I think, from the perspective of knowing exactly what the challenges you're going to face are right off the bat, but in some ways not bad, but less ideal because that creative juice doesn't always flow exactly the same when it's the
Mhm.
same type of project. So if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Francis Roy has like, a laser focused niche in terms of like you only take on this type of client. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
So there are two things. We did start out with a niche.
Okay.
We started out in destination marketing because that is where my area of expertise came from. So I have a master's in sustainable tourism. I'm fanatical about the crossroads of environmental preservation and responsible tourism. We still kind of have the foundation of that when we choose tourism clients. We like responsible development. We, like tourism companies that have a good corporate social responsibility or, some sort of like tie to the community, right? So that is still there.
Okay.
But as I grew the team, they brought more experience and idea and they expanded our niche. They did, not me,
Okay.
because I didn't have it. I needed to be niche down because I only had a very limited range of knowledge and experience. But Janae, our art director, is an illustrator and an animator. And that took us in different, places. And, we have um, all of these just I think really interesting people who bring so much more to the table than I do, that if we got approached with a project, I brought it to the team and said, "Hey, what do you guys think? Do you love this? Do you hate it? Should we go after it? Should we say yes?" And more often than not, they surprised me in ways of like, "Oh yeah, I can lead this. I have
Mm.
this experience. I can do this." And so we took it. And we expanded, but also responsibly and deliberately.
Yeah.
I think it's important, but we're not in the business of over promising and under delivering.
Of course.
We're definitely not in that, but we still kind of have a niche and we also have exclusivity agreements,
Mm.
which makes working with us very desirable because we are not going to work for your competitor. And that makes our work, if a business is in your direct comp set, we will not work for them as well. And it keeps our work clean
Yeah.
and it keeps our intentions pure. And we can work freely without thinking like, oh, if we create something, it might be in conflict with such and such. We
Right.
knew right away that we wanted to do that because other agencies, because we get confused with other types of agencies in our area, like PR agencies. We're not a PR agency. Love those guys. We do have PR function, but we're not. So, and a lot of our local agencies, there's not that many of them.
No.
So they have to work for competitors. So we knew right away that that would provide a point of difference for us. So we were niche down in the beginning. We kind of grew that niche a little bit. We still have it, but we grew it a little bit, but it's deliberate and controlled. It's not like we're going to work for everyone,
Of
We're
course.
just
Yeah.
not a good fit for everybody. And that's okay.
And you probably can charge more for that too.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always the struggle, I think, is like, how much do I charge? The exclusivity has always been really interesting to me for that very reason. Like,
Yes.
would I be able to charge, 5x or something, which doesn't always work, I think, unless you have some kind of marketing, avenue to your business. But I think to the point of niching down, like for me from the beginning, I would offer everything under the sun, even though like realistically, I wasn't an expert in any of them. And what I found
That's
was
okay.
what'd you say?
I said, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I realized like these things are such a drain on time that like I can't excel at any of them. And once I dropped pretty much 90% of every service, I used to have 10 million things on the site and now I have two. So it's like that helped me kind of get to a point where I could even consider needing somebody. And it
Yes.
also helped really figure out what does this person need to do? What skill set do they need to have? They don't need to be a graphic designer, social media expert, email, Facebook, all this kind of stuff. And keeping that person's responsibilities really honed in. So that prompts a question like, is that something you're looking for? Is it something that this person needs to have a very narrow skill set? Or, if you find that person that has that skill set and other things, are you going to take that person over someone else? Just curious, like what you're looking for in your future team members.
So I always look for, and we talked about this a little bit, but the soft skills over talent.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of the first thing, but it really does depend. I like to hire people instead of for purpose.
Okay. Yep.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, the longevity is there, and those people are I love to hire resourceful people. So jack of all trade types of people, even though our job descriptions don't necessarily like we're looking for a unicorn, we're always looking for a unicorn
Right.
and we'll make room for a unicorn too. Like, somebody that is the kind of person that's like, I don't know, but I'm going to find out.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's been very rare that we're like, oh, we're looking for a graphic designer and that's what we're going to look for, because the reality is like my job and other jobs, there's a lot of us, there's a lot of graphic designers. There are not a lot of graphic designers that I've worked with that are not ego first. Like that, they're going to push their idea, and, no knock on graphic designers, but they all have styles. They're very artistic. They're very talented. But if you can break through and get someone who is collaborative, who is a team player,
Yeah.
who's going to care about the best idea, even though it didn't come from them. Like that was something that I observed on the client side before I started, when I was managing agencies, is you would get in this room with these amazingly talented people. And if you didn't agree with their idea, it was like the drama of
Yeah. Yeah.
it. And well, like, I get it, dude. Like you're brilliant and all of that, but this is just not what we want. This
Right.
is not what we're asking for. So it's the balance between like you give a client what they're asking for, but you're giving them something a little bit better because you're utilizing your skill set, like, and if they could do it, they would do it on their own.
Yeah.
So working with designers and anybody really, photographers, videographers, web developers, whatever, that are not going to be like, oh my God, they hated my idea. Like, I'm done with this,
Right.
And so we don't look for the diva type. We look for the collaborative type. And usually that person comes on with us in a freelancer capacity and allows us to kind of test them out and for them to test us out. And then that leads ultimately to a relationship that maybe they're hired on part-time and then they're hired on however that needs to look. So
That's a really good point, because I've been through a number of contractors in varying capacities, like graphic designers and other web developers and stuff. And maybe it's my own skill set not finding the right person initially, but I feel like you would strike gold if you hit that person the first time. Like you found the ideal candidate, because you've been through 4 or 5 people. There's a learning experience to finding that right person, but also letting the wrong person go. And
yes.
But then being a contractor makes it so much easier.
Oh yeah. I mean, being a contractor, you're just like, you're managing yourself and your work. It's beautiful. I sometimes miss being a contractor.
Right?
We're just like, oh my God, all I want to do is wake up and not have to worry about, the
Yeah.
revenue and that was a beautiful time in my life, but it's now this is beautiful because of a different reason. We get to kind of share that now. Our team is doing more and more. I view Francis Roy as a legacy, that as something that I'm going to leave behind. If, I know we didn't talk about this very much, but like Francis Roy is named after my grandparents. Francis is my grandmother and Roy is my grandfather. And it keeps my compass set. I know that the work needs to be something that I would be proud to, share with them.
Yeah.
And so, there is that. I just want to do more. I want to do more. I want to do more than what I can do alone.
So that
So,
goes back to the earlier point that we were making about deciding which way you want to go. Because
right.
it's like if you're okay with being that standalone person, you're happy with what you make, you keep your complications super low, like there's something to be said for that. But I've always had this desire in my own business. I've always said, and I think I've said to you in the past, like, I want to do something meaningful.
Yes.
I don't want to just build websites. I want to have some impact on the world or that business or that person, something positive. And
Yeah.
that I think sometimes I forget that because I'm trying to, I don't know, you said the compass isn't quite dialed in. Like you kind of got to keep that in perspective because as one individual, you're probably not going to be able to make a huge impact on the world. There's going to be a team of people. I think about like all the successful people that have made a positive impact on the world. None of them did it alone. There's always those people. So
Absolutely not. And any time that we've been able to create something, and when I say we there, I mean my husband and I, who is my partner in our business, but anytime we're able to create something that has a positive impact on the lives of the people who work for us has been so much more rewarding than any project that I've ever done.
yeah,
So, the way that, like, for example, we have probably one of the more aggressive maternity paternity policies in the state. You receive 6 weeks paid, fully paid 100%. We're in the state of Florida. You don't have to pay them at all, actually.
it's crazy.
But if you do, it's like, only up to 66% of their pay. We've had two kids, our kids are in their 20s. Like, I don't know who can live off of 66% of their pay for 6 weeks, but that's just crazy. And we didn't want that. We wanted to be able to offer more. So even our part-time employees receive maternity and paternity leave. We have a really fun leave policy for people who are adopting a pet for the first time. So you receive 2 weeks paid leave to, integrate that new dog or new cat into your
That's
family.
fantastic.
And that is something that, like, holy crap, I would have loved to have that in my career, when the
Yep.
kids were young. And so now we can offer that, and seeing the impact and the ripple effect of that it's so much more rewarding than any check I've ever cashed for Francis Roy. So
That's such a good point.
it's a bit cliche, and people might be like, oh, that's a little bit bullshit, but it's really not.
It's not though, because like when I'm talking about making an impact on the world, I don't mean some like, invent the perfect electric car, solar power, blah, blah, blah. Nothing to that like nth degree. I envision stuff like that where in your own way, you're having a positive impact on people's lives better than could have happened in, another company. I always thought that when I was leaving my old job, like, you see this checklist of stuff that could be done better or that you wish you had and then being
Mm,
able to fulfill that opportunity for other people, making their lives even slightly better. You're totally right. Even if I could cash that number one check again from the biggest client, like, yeah, the high lasts a little bit, but not like it would if you're really helping somebody in a positive way.
yeah, I mean, that's very well said.
Yeah.
It's There are just there's so many struggles and pain points from growing from working for yourself to working for others, that it's but the rewards are different.
Yeah.
And I think it all depends on what you're trying to get out of it as well. There was a very long time where I didn't pay myself, because I really wanted to prioritize the team, and that was a luxury, obviously, that was provided to me that, not a lot of freelancers could take advantage of. And so, I think that you have to it was a privilege, frankly. And, I like to address that because it's not something that a lot of people could do.
Right.
And being in a dual income family afforded me that privilege. And, you know, it made it easier. I don't have a ton of privileges in life, so I feel like whatever you have that you're privileged to have, that you should utilize that to help other people.
Hmm.
And so I did that, and my husband fed me and made sure that I wasn't going to die.
Right.
And we built Francis Roy off of that until there was a time where he could retire and quit doing what he was doing and let me take over. And that's where we are right now. And that partnership and that support was just so crucial, to transitioning from freelancer to agency. So
And now you can pass that same support on to other people in your team and the people that you do
yeah.
work for.
Well, yeah, and my kids work for us. Our son is he's a budding web developer. Our daughter is an event coordinator, and it's just so nice to grow something that is a family legacy, and then we're able to, I mean, because we didn't have a lot of money. This is what we're giving to our kids, is this
Yeah.
ability, so it's it's just rewarding in so many ways. But
It's
do I miss waking up and being like, working from my home and just worrying about, you don't have to worry about that, relying on someone else and just cranking out the work.
yeah.
And I miss that so much. So
So I agree with you that there is something to be said for like this is your set of responsibilities and nothing else. Like anything else that
yes.
happens outside that boundary doesn't matter. I've always had the opinion though, especially since I had, a taste of making my own schedule, it's like I would rather make just enough money to live and have the time flexibility than
Mm.
be, fully locked down on a, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. work schedule, have a bunch of money but no time to use it or enjoy life. So like that there's that same balance. We're talking about, do you want to scale? What is more important to you? Like having a big team and, potentially more revenue possibly, or is it less complication, potentially more freedom? It's an interesting debate that I don't know anybody can answer except yourself.
Well, I mean, I will say this: I can't ever go back. I'm never
No,
working for another
me
person again.
either.
No, forget that crap. Like, that's just noise to me. Like, I'm never doing that. I will retire. I will sell friendship bracelets on the side of the road before I
Yep.
do that
Yep.
again. I'm not doing that. So
Never.
that's what I know I'm not doing. I would rather work towards something than, that's just my personal opinion. That's what my desire, my goal is. So
Yeah.
to your point, 100% agreed. I would rather just barely make enough money and, have to grow my own food. Like, I don't care.
Yep.
I'm not doing that. But, when you're managing a team, you're still working for them. And when you're an agency, you have like, right now, I think we have 35 clients, on deck, that,
Mm.
and a good portion of those clients are retainer clients, about half of those that we are doing regular recurring work for. Every single one of those clients is somebody that I report to directly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So while I have the flexibility, I sometimes don't take it. And that is a word of caution. And I am not good at this. I'm just not good at it. I mean, I'm starting to get a little bit better, but there is a cautionary tale in that you can be addicted to work. You could be addicted to the growth and development
Yep.
and the progression. And then you look in the mirror and you're like, wow, I'm really tired. Or, and all freelancers, I think, can really relate to this, but you're not clocking in and clocking out. And that seems like a really beautiful thing until you never clock out.
Right. Yep.
You just, and you could go weeks and weeks and weeks, and you're just like, you've not seen the sunshine, or, so there is the intention of going in and being like, oh, I have all of this control over my schedule,
Yeah.
until you realize that you're addicted to the work and that all you want to do is work.
It's so true because it's like, the computer is there in the house ready for you to just log on,
Yes.
just check one more time before you go to bed. And then suddenly 2 hours have passed by and your brain is wired. I have that problem a lot where I just accidentally check my email one more time and then I'm trying to lay down and I'm thinking about it. I actually, funny enough, I told you this, Chantelle, but I had a dream that I overslept for this very live stream. And
You
it's like,
did. We laughed about it.
because it's like I probably looked at my calendar at the wrong time and got psyched out, you know? So there's an
Yeah.
element to that. I want to
And
be
then you're
respectful.
responsible.
Go ahead.
You're responsible for everything. This is
Yeah,
your
exactly.
show. Yeah.
Exactly. I want to be respectful of your time. So real quick, I want to throw out in chat, if anybody has any questions before we start to wrap up, please throw those in and we'll try to address them. But I wanted to ask you one question while that comes in, Chantelle. If you now could go back to your future self, let's say maybe, I don't know, shortly after you started or maybe right before you started, is there one thing that stands out as like a lesson you could give yourself, or, you know, some bit of advice that would have been maybe accelerated your growth or guided you differently? I know that's a
Oh,
big question.
it's such a big question because I feel like I deal with the ramifications of this all the time. But I think it is what we just talked about, in that, make sure that you're not just making room in your life for this. Like it became like my baby.
Yeah.
And I gave myself permission to prioritize it over everything. My husband retired, both of my kids graduated from high school and then went to college, and I was just like, oh, this is my time. And then I just got carried away with it, and I gave the business everything that I had, and I ultimately ended up getting sick. Like it just took me down. And now it's working towards that balance of taking care of myself, taking care of the team, and realizing not everything has to be responded to. I have this thing in my email signature, which, where I check emails at 8, 12, and 4. It's not perfect, but I try to do it, because if I'm just sitting there answering emails and behind my computer all day, I am not actually doing anything
Yeah. Yep.
for myself or for anybody else. And so setting some boundaries, that would be the one thing. It's like, girl, set some boundaries. Because
Yep.
once I took down the boundaries and I provided myself with this, like, oh, you have all this time, it was like I filled it with my job and my work and this mission. And while the rewards have been great from that, there was a cost,
Yeah.
and it ended up being my health and my time. And so now I'm getting all that back on track, but just understanding that you have to take care of yourself, because this is an immense responsibility. I think I told you the other day, the most stressed I have ever been in my entire life was when I had 2 employees at the same time buying houses. I would go home at night and I told my husband, I'm like, I feel like we're buying 2 houses, and it's stressing me out. I mean, I wasn't even involved in the process at all, but the responsibility,
Yeah.
keep the work going so that these people could also have the financial means to do what was a dream of theirs, was the biggest and most stressful responsibility. That wasn't even my responsibility, Jonathan.
Right. Indirectly, in some ways, it kind of is, though. But I see what you're saying. You weren't involved in the house purchase, though.
No,
Yeah, that's
I have
amazing.
no ownership at all over there. But I think it is setting boundaries, clear and definitive boundaries, and then setting goals and being committed to deliberate growth.
Yeah. Yep.
Because once people hear that you're going to do for them what they cannot get anywhere else, everyone's going to want you to do it for them. That's the beautiful thing, right? But then you have to say no to some of those things,
That's the most freeing thing ever, is being able to say no.
brother.
Preaching to the choir here.
Saying no is my favorite thing.
It's honestly like the first time you say it, I was like shaking, like, oh, yes.
It's the best. Saying no to me is more addictive than saying yes.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree.
Yeah.
'Cause
So you have to say no.
Absolutely, you do. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat here, and we're over an hour, so I want to make sure that, I let you go here on time. I know you got a business to run and people to see.
Yes. Yeah. I'm so excited. I know I was just looking at some of the chat here, and it looks like Kunal has his first client, or maybe her. I'm sorry if I'm not getting the pronoun correctly, but first client in the local area. And that is such a huge accomplishment. Congratulations.
Absolutely massive. Yeah.
It looks like you have some website questions, which obviously
Oh.
I cannot answer. I love how people are like, I'm old. This is so awesome. How How fun. What a great community you have.
It's really incredible. The support is just immense from, just everybody. And it started with one simple video talking about Oxygen Builder, and over the last couple of years it's grown into what it has, and it's still growing, which is just amazing. And the fact that it's worldwide is so cool. That's why I like to ask where people are from and just see, we have people from all over the world watching, and there are plenty more people that can't be here just because of time differences too, which is amazing. So
I know.
I'll quickly answer Kunal's question. He said, I have a question posted about most difficult website, how much you charge and how much you charge commonly. So
Ooh.
the most difficult one is hard to answer because each project varies, but I typically am charging at a minimum of 3,500 US, and that comes with a bunch of different bells and whistles, but that has grown tremendously over the years. My very first website ever was $350, and
Love it.
it looked like a $350 website. So like, I'm not ashamed of that. It's just the way it was. At that time, I didn't have the resources and the people. It truly was just me at that time, and I didn't know what I didn't know. But now it's grown tremendously, and there's multiple people involved in that process. So it's just made a better product. Most difficult website? It's hard to answer. And that the project that comes to mind, I can't speak on like the specifics of it, but it was a challenge that now I know what I would charge for that, and it would be probably 2 or 3 times what I did. So, you have those expensive learning lessons. And
Yes, you do.
those are always valuable, because either you know that you never want to take on that kind of project again, or you know what it's going to take to do it properly next time. So,
Oh my gosh, Jonathan, what do you think about the most difficult website being your own?
well, that's true. That's true. Because first of all,
Yeah.
you never have time to do it.
Never.
And then also, like, it just constantly needs to be updated. There's just,
Yes.
it never ends. And then people are going to it. I'm sure, just like you, I have people all the time that are like, yeah, I looked at your website, and I'm like, shit, I haven't updated that in like 6 months. Or like, they looked at a portfolio piece and they're like, I saw this one, and I'm like, no, that one's terrible. No.
I think that you have to prioritize your own branding and marketing. We've had this discussion.
Yeah.
And so the most difficult sometimes is your own, because you feel like you're prioritizing all the client work all the time, but your website, your work is what is going to generate and attract, potentially help close deals for you.
Yep.
So you have to do it. You have to take the time. One of the best bits of advice I ever got when I first launched was always be working on your own business. Even so, I started to set like Tuesdays 1 hour and Thursdays 1 hour to work on the marketing implementation for Francis Roy in the very beginning, and we still do that. I mean, we have a podcast that allows us to generate content, and that keeps us pretty regular. It's been going on for 2 years, so you have to have some reason to always be touching your own implementation.
You totally do. Yeah, I wanted to shout that out. So you can find Chantelle at the links in the description below, of course, but they also have Hello Francis, which is their podcast. Tons of amazing people have been on that. Yours truly has been on there as well.
Yes.
And
talking about websites, so that's a
Yes.
great one to listen to.
It's really good. So that one, the podcast is fantastic. Tons of amazing speakers, like I said, a really broad range of topics. And what I appreciate so much about you is just you as a person are fantastic, but also that you're willing to look introspectively at yourself in the business and be what's the word, like not accountable. I'm trying to say like clarifying. What am I trying to say? Like
Transparent.
That's it. Thank you. And just willing to share that with people. It's really refreshing, because I think a lot of people in our industries are very reserved. They don't want to talk about what they charge. They don't talk about their struggles. There's like a mental health aspect that people don't talk about. So,
Oh gosh,
and
yeah.
you touch on that. So it's fantastic.
It's huge. If you're like into documentaries, especially like food documentaries, I'm obsessed with food documentaries and like food, Chinese like routines on YouTube. I did like a whole other thing. But if you watch Ramen Heads on Netflix, it's a really great documentary. And the chef there talks about the reason why people don't give their secret recipe is because they don't want everyone to know that there's no secret.
Yeah, it's so true.
And it is so flippin' true.
So true.
It is so true. And that he's like, I'm going to tell you and show you everything that I do, because what makes it unique is not what I put into it. It's that I put into it. And oh my God, that changed my life.
And it applies to literally everything if you think about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I mean, share how you do things with other people. They're not going to do it like you. They're going
exactly.
to do it like they would do it. And there's no harm in that. It's just putting so much good into the world, I think.
And even if they directly copy you, it's not going to be as good. And it, like you said, it won't be the same thing. There's no risk. It's only
There's no
upside for
risk.
you.
It might be as good in a different way. And
Yeah.
then, you have helped that person create something that is just so cool. Like, there's a new podcast in our area that's like geared towards entrepreneurs, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, why the hell would I be worried about that? Like, there's nothing. We're so different. We're going to bring different things. I'm not saturating 100% of my market anyways,
Right.
which means that there are people out there that probably need to hear from someone, and I'm just not the right fit for them. So, it's just a bigger picture thinking. It no one is so great that what they're doing cannot be shared with someone else.
Absolutely. It's so true. So true.
Well, thank you for letting me do that today. That was so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, everybody. I'd love to do more of these. I'm going to come up with more topics for sure. Bradbury says, now I want noodles. Me too. Let's go get that.
Doodles.
And with that, we're going to close it out. So thank you guys so much. And don't forget to go find Chantelle down at the links in the description below.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much. So
Bye,
much
everybody.
fun. Jonathan, so proud of you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.